Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris Martinez here, host of Operation Agency Freedom. And in this episode, if you have hired one person or 1,000 and you've gone through all the difficult work of evaluating and finding that perfect candidate, well, I am going to share something with you that is so unbelievably important. Today, I'm going to talk to you about your first 90 days with onboarding a new team member. So if you've ever hired somebody and you're so excited and then they show up on the first day and you're like, well, go to work. I'm here to tell you that is the wrong way to approach this. So I know that hiring is very, very difficult. I know that it's challenging, but hiring is not the end all be all. That's not where the work ends. You do need to have a process in place to get that team member up to speed. Now, my personal belief is that that team member should be able to contribute within 2 weeks of them starting, and they should be relatively autonomous within 90 days. This is what we do here at Dude, and I'm going to talk to you exactly about that process. So if you have ever hired somebody ever and you plan on hiring somebody ever and you want to learn how to get that person up to speed very quickly, the must do's and the must not do's, and ultimately how to create a great experience for both you and your new team member, then you absolutely want to listen to all of this episode, take lots of notes. But even if you're listening and you don't have the ability to take notes, make sure that you go to the website and look at the show notes after you listen to the show, because you'll be able to get all the information that I talk about, any websites that I mentioned, of course, the notes, links, all that good stuff will absolutely be on the site. So with that being said, I hope you enjoy this episode and make sure that you subscribe so that you are always in the know and you are the first to know when we drop a new episode of Operation Agency Freedom. So with that being said, let's head over and listen to the full episode. Okay, welcome back, and thank you so much for joining me. I am excited to talk about this. To be honest with you, I am not the expert on this. So I'm kind of going to be teaching you things from our HR director, who happens to also be my fiance. So she's amazing. She's smart. She's beautiful. She is perfect. And I'm not just saying that because I have to. It is true. So I'm going to talk to you guys today about your first 90 days with a new team member. And I feel like this is something that's often neglected because we put so much emphasis into finding that candidate that we sometimes feel like that the work ends there. When in reality, finding the candidate, obviously, and all the work that goes into that is really, really important, because if you don't have a great team member, it's nearly impossible to get them onboarded the way that you want and performing the way that you want. Like if you just plop somebody into their chair the first day and you expect them to kind of figure out how to work with you best, you're setting them up for failure. And it's going to be very frustrating for you. It's going to be very frustrating for them. And it's just not going to work out the way that you want, right? And we all know that time is money. You know, that's a cliche. And so the quicker that you can get that person up and running quickly and performing the way that you want them to, and more importantly, having them perform the way that they want to and that they're feeling fulfilled about, the better it is going to be for your organization and obviously your bottom line. So I'm going to talk to you guys about a 90-day process, and you can take these tips and you can move them around however you want. But I will tell you that at Dude, we have created what I consider to be a great process. So obviously we're fantastic at hiring. Everybody that we hire is top notch, literally like top 2% folks that are out there, and not just based on technical skill. We hire based on soft skills first. They of course do have the technical skills, but with that being said, our team members are able to get up and running and start producing within 2 weeks or less, meaning they are completing design projects, they are completing development tasks and development projects within 2 weeks of starting with us, and they are pretty much autonomous and don't really need that much coaching. Like with what we do, there's always going to be lifelong learning, and there's always going to be something new that you have to learn. But they're pretty much autonomous within 90 days, which I don't know what the stats are compared to other companies, but I can say for myself, like when I was working in a sales role, it's months, like 6 months at least, before that person can literally go out and start running sales calls without a mentor. So the fact that I think that we're able to get our folks up and running in 90 days is pretty powerful. So you should definitely take these tips and know that our process, while it might be a little bit different for your own process, but our process works. So with that that being said, let's get started. So the first thing is that you want to have a plan for your new team member. Now, depending on what roles you're hiring for and what roles these people are stepping into, the plan might be a little bit different, but you absolutely do not want them to just show up on day one without some sort of plan. I would also encourage you to share this plan with your team member on day one, because people like certainty. They like to know what's going to happen. They like to know what are the steps that they're going to take to get to step A, B, and C. So have this written out. And if you can draw it out or create a graphic that shows their progress, even better, right? It's just going to make them feel more comfortable. They're going to be like completely understanding of all the things that they need to know. So that's the first thing, is just have a plan. And like I mentioned, it's going to change based on the role. But this next thing that I'm going to say, this should be standard for everybody that you hire. So day one, in my humble opinion and my fiance's opinion, day one needs to be totally about indoctrination into the company culture. So every company, whether you're aware of it or not, you have a very unique company culture. And so the first day needs to be as much information about that company culture as possible. So what we do is we actually have a history of dude video. So like if you think, hopefully you guys have seen the original Jurassic Park. And if you remember, like they're going through and they're taking like the tour, they're sitting in the chair that's moving around, and they're taking the tour, and there's like a cartoon that shows like the dino DNA and how they get the dinosaur DNA out of the mosquitoes and stuff like that. We kind of created a video like that. So internally we have a character called Taquito, and Taquito is a little dog and tells the story of dude. So literally, like a lot of it's about me, actually, like the background of how I got into digital marketing. Actually, I think it goes beyond that. I think it talks about my failures in business, and there's a reason why I'll explain it in a second. My failures in business, how I got into digital marketing, how I learned web design, how we started with a team in the Philippines, why we decided to go down to Mexico and the leap of faith that we took there, and how that grew the agency. And then of course, how that turned into Dude and the amazing people that we hired. And all along the way throughout this story, we're talking about the mistakes that we made. So here's why that's really, really important for our company culture. Specifically in Mexico, failure is not seen as something that you should ever talk about. If anything, you should always avoid failure. Unfortunately, a lot of times when you fail at a company in Mexico, they fire you instantly. So people are so terrified of failing. But at our company, failure is just a part of growth, right? We treat failure as growth. And with what we do, because things are constantly changing, you need to be pushing the limits. You need to be failing. So not the end of the world. And so we talk about me, because I'm the leader, right? I'm the owner. And I lead by example by talking about my failures and how the way that I approached that failure helped me to grow and gain new skills. And eventually it led to something great, which is Dude. So that's really important. So whatever it is within your story, I would highly recommend that in the very beginning, maybe day one of you bringing that person into the team, it doesn't necessarily have to be a cartoon, but I would do something automated where you're talking about the story of the company. That also provides people a sense of purpose. So when they go to work for a company, and I'm going to say right now that everybody who's in the workforce right now, who's under the age of 40, they want to feel like their work matters. They will choose a company that has a strong mission and that they can connect to that mission over higher pay. I'm just going to go out and throw that out there right now. So if you're not incorporating that into your hiring process and into your new hire onboarding, you are doing yourself and your team members a disservice. So very, very important to tell that story to create that connection. So if you want some inspiration, I would highly recommend, almost demand, that the next time that you go to Las Vegas, you have to do the Zappos culture tour. I've done it, I think 3 times now. It is so unbelievably important. And literally every time you go to Vegas, you should take the Zappos culture tour, because there's always something different. They have new people that are giving the tour. You're probably at a different place in your business so that you can ask different questions. It's unbelievable. In my opinion, Zappos is probably the gold standard when it comes to company culture. At the very least, you need to pick up Tony Hsieh's book, Delivering Happiness. Do the audio version if you like, because he's actually talking. I did the audio version. I thought it was fantastic. But there's so many valuable lessons in that book as well. But like I said, if you can get to Vegas, do the culture tour. It's like $10. I think it's like 2 or 3 hours. It will be the most valuable 2 or 3 hours that you ever spend when it comes to company culture. It's that important. And then every time you go back to Vegas, do the tour. So that will give you some inspiration too as to how you can start doing your hiring process, because they do talk a lot about that. Obviously, culture is important to them, but in my opinion, it starts on day one. So you absolutely have to do that within the first week, is basically indoctrinating people into your culture. So once you've got that set up, as part of your onboarding process, you do want to list out the timeline and the split of how much of their first few weeks of training are going to be classroom and how many are going to be like actually doing the work and maybe shadowing somebody on the team. This is really important. I would not put them in a classroom for 40 hours a week. It's just not fun. Like, think about it. Like, when you start a job, do you want to just sit and watch videos or have somebody lecture at you for the first week? No, you're kind of taking the wind out of their sails. When they start the job, they're very, very excited. So you want to be able to capitalize on that. Same with customers too. When they start, they're usually really excited. So when you have your new hires that are starting with you, they're eager. They're thinking, this is going to be the best job ever. I'm so excited. The mission is cool. The products are cool. I'm so excited to just jump in. If you have them sit in a classroom for even 20 hours a week, I think you're really going to just start to demotivate them, which is not good, especially in the first week. So I would list out like how many hours a day they're actually going to be spending watching training videos or talking to an instructor, and then how many hours a week they're going to be sitting with somebody or actually starting to do projects. This is something that I think that we do really well, right? So we have a couple hours of training online, watching videos, and this is like boring shit too. So like, here's how payroll works, and here's how you're going to get paid, and this is your benefits. And we actually do teach them about finance and how to manage their personal finances. That's something that's kind of unique about us that nobody else talks about in Mexico. So that's exciting. But for the most part, they don't want to be sitting there doing that. So we have them starting to work on projects very, very quickly. And it can be something very small. So if it's a designer, we'll assign them to a team, or I should say a project, and then they'll get a little design project. And then the team leader that is managing that project knows to like give a little padding in terms of the turnaround time and stuff like that. We have our team members come in and become what we call floaters. So basically the floater gets to go between all the different teams, and they get assigned little projects to kind of dip their toe in the water. They also get to see the different management styles between the different pod leaders. They get to work on a bunch of different projects. And it's kind of like a crash course into the process of how we operate, but also a crash course into the culture too, because they're getting to interact with a bunch of different people, which I think is really, really cool. So we do try and balance that out. I don't know the exact breakdown of the hours, but I'm going to guess it's like 60-40, 60% working with somebody, doing projects, and 40% classroom. Definitely the first day is like all classroom, but after that, it goes like 60-40. So that's really, really important. Now, whatever it means to you, like however you want to break it down, I'm not telling you exactly how to do it. I'm saying best practice is to not have them sit in the classroom the whole time, but however you want to break that out, totally up to you. And maybe you want to do an hour of classroom a day and then 7 hours of them sitting with somebody, but also take into consideration that if they're shadowing somebody, that person that they're shadowing is also kind of distracted because they're not able to just focus on their own work. So you probably don't want to do like 7 hours of shadowing. Maybe you can do 5 hours of shadowing or 4.5 hours of shadowing. But if you have them constantly looking over somebody's shoulder, it can be a little bit annoying for that individual. Maybe annoying isn't the best word, because your team members are probably going to be eager to help train somebody else, but it definitely can impact the productivity. And like, if that team member's performance and like productivity is tied to a bonus, you might get a little bit of pushback. So just be aware of it, be conscious of it, maybe even talk to some team members and be like, hey, what do you think is reasonable? And maybe they can float and shadow different team members, so it's not the same person every single day as well. So like I was saying, like at Dude, we have our team members working on projects like pretty much right away, definitely within the first 2 weeks. Another big thing that you need to take into consideration when you're building out your hiring process, and this is for those that have multicultural teams. So if you have teams that are in different countries, you definitely have to be aware of the cultural standards in the work environment. So I'll give you a perfect example. So in Mexico specifically, and I've heard this about a lot of other Latin American countries, I can't speak exactly about which ones, but I know that for a fact in Mexico, there is a common cultural belief amongst employees and management that employees cannot trust management and that management cannot trust employees. Now, why is that, you might be asking? There is a long history of corruption within the government here, where the government takes advantage of people. And so therefore the people associate anybody who's in a position of power as being untrustworthy. I actually learned this from Brian Tracy, and I've seen it with my own eyes. So that is something that you have to overcome in your new hire process. Now, obviously, we treat our team members very differently than any other company out there. We value them, we empower them, we want them to help contribute. But those are things that they don't instinctively know that we believe in. So we have to actively indoctrinate them into those things. We have to show them and we have to teach them, these are our values. This is how we treat you. These are the things that we expect from you. So the point of this is that where your team members are located, there is a cultural influence that you may have to overcome. So the best thing to do is to just address it, map it out in your hiring process, and then make sure that every team member knows that you are different and basically overcome those objections. So again, like if we're looking at a sales process, you kind of know the objections that are coming. Like when you go to hire somebody and you're training them, you should know the objections that the team members are going to have. For example, common one, team members in Mexico are accustomed to the management saying you're going to make X amount of money. And then when you actually start, they don't pay you that, which is absurd to me, but that's kind of like what has happened. Now, has everybody experienced that? No, but I guarantee you that one of their family members or one of their friends has experienced that. So now they're telling them, you better watch out. That company is going to screw you over. They're not going to do what they said that they're going to do. Da, 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 da. Right? There's this narrative that gets talked about, management and employee. So you can either not address it and then let those feelings continue. And basically that person's going to look for any excuse to be like, oh man, they were right. Or you can address it, which is what we do, which I encourage you to do. And make sure that you're addressing those cultural differences right away and then working to overcome those objections, just like you would any sales objection. Okay. So that definitely has to happen within the first month. Now, here's the thing is that the training is never going to stop. It's ongoing training with any job, any role, or any company that's doing something innovative. There's going to be consistent training. So just know and make sure that you tell the person that they're your new hire that there's going to be lifelong learning. And what we tell them is it's self-learning. Like a lot of these things, like we'll help you get to wherever you want to go, but a lot of that is going to be on you. So we'll give you the tools, but a lot of those hours that you're going to have to learn those new skills are not going to be just on the job training. You're going to have to be investing time in yourself outside of normal work hours. And actually in Mexico, that's a very new cultural concept is self-learning. Kind of the standard is that like the company dictates what you learn and how you learn and when you learn. Well, we say like, we are not in control of your future. You are in control of your future. With that being said, if you want to get to a certain place in your career and you want to make certain money, it's on you to learn those things. We'll tell you exactly what you need to learn. Sometimes we'll buy you the trainings, but you're going to have to do those things off work hours, which is unique to us. So again, you need to tell that individual that the learning doesn't stop after the first 90 days. And that way they'll know that like, this is something that I'm going to have to do. Like my training doesn't end on day 90. So as you're building out your process, make sure that they understand how and what the benchmarks are, and then what happens beyond those 90 days. A tool that we really like to use, and I'm going to give a little plug to my buddy Chris Ronzio, is Trainual. So if you've never heard of Trainual, and I don't get any affiliate out of this, I just know Chris. We use the software, obviously. It's a great, great tool. But if you're looking for a tool to use to train your staff, I highly recommend that you check out Trainual. Trainual is really cool because even an idiot like me can go in and set up training courses. And what's really neat is like, let's say you have these, training videos that you've created, whether they're on YouTube or Vimeo or whatever, you can put those into Trainual and create modules, like learning modules really easily. And then you can create tests too. So what we do is we use Trainual and we have like a culture test, right? Or we have a culture training. So the team member will go in, will watch these videos, they'll do all this training. And then at the end, they have a test and it can be multiple choice. I think you can also put in answers too. And so if there's a minimum score on that test, so if they fail, guess what? They got to go back and they got to do it again. And then they got to learn. People normally don't fail, but it definitely helps people stay accountable because accountability is something that's very important to us as a company. So they have to pay attention. They have to hit the minimum scores. They are expected to do all of those things, put in the effort, get the work done. So we use Trainual. The first time I started using it, I literally set up an entire training program for developers and I set it up myself. And the tool itself, it's like drag and drop. And they actually have templates that you can just use and probably edit. But suffice to say, the first trainings that we ever did, I set them up. So if a dummy like me can do it, then you definitely can do it. And basically, you can map out the entire 90-day training process right there and use that tool. If you want a tool to help you manage all of this and get it done quickly and effectively, and it's not going to be a whole lot of work for you, then definitely check out Trainual. And if you have any questions about how to set this up, you feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at info@dudeagency.io, and then I'll try and coordinate your email to the right person. So most likely it's not going to be me who's going to be answering your question, because this is just not my area of expertise, but we can funnel it to our HR department. We have like 3 or 4 people in HR who can jump on. And this is just one of the things that we would like to help you out with, because I know how unbelievably difficult it is to hire and train. And most agency owners have never gotten any formal training on how to train your employees. We're all just kind of figuring it out as we go. Well, guess what? You don't have to figure it out as you go. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We will provide you coaching. I think in our Dude School platform, I think we also have some hiring and training modules in there. And if that's completely false, then I apologize, but we will get some trainings in there on those subjects. So with that being said, that's kind of like a good framework for you guys to build out your first 90-day series of training your team members. And hopefully within that 90 days, if you follow this framework, you'll have your team members up and running and autonomous within the first 90 days. So with that being said, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much to me if you could share it with your friends, family, and basically anyone who will find the same value in this episode that you did. And to get the latest from me, then let's definitely connect on social media. You can go to Facebook, facebook.com/Dude Agency, or Instagram @dudeagency.io, or you can check us out on YouTube on our YouTube channel. And then, of course, you can always visit our website at dudeagency.io, where you can see all of our other episodes of Operation Agency Freedom. You can also register for any live trainings that we have going on how to run a highly profitable agency. And, of course, you can see how we help digital agencies with the people, the processes, and the education so that they can take on more projects and scale profitably. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.